My family left me at a rest stop 300 miles from home as a joke. All 3 cars. My mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, every single person who was supposed to have my back, and they drove away laughing. I was 19 years old with $43 in my wallet and a phone at 20% battery. 15 years later, my father is dying and they want me to come home. I have 107 missed calls on my phone right now. I haven't answered a single one. And before you judge that, let me tell you exactly what happened the night they left me on the side of the road. Because that night didn't just change my life. It ended one version of me and started another. The version they're calling now has no interest in going back. To understand everything, we need to go back to that rest stop. It was a 6-hour drive home from my uncle's funeral. 3 cars in a convoy, my brother Kyle driving the one I was in, my parents up front, my sister Rachel in the rear. 2 hours in, Kyle pulled into a rest stop and said he needed coffee. I got out to stretch, walked around the building to the bathroom, and when I came back 5 minutes later, the parking spot was empty. All 3 cars were gone. I stood there for a moment thinking I had the wrong spot. I walked the entire lot. I didn't have the wrong spot. I called Kyle. It rang once and went to voicemail. I tried my mom, my dad, Rachel. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed with a group text from Kyle, a photo of all of them laughing inside the moving car. The caption read, "Let's see if he can make it back." My mom replied with crying laughing emojis. Rachel wrote, "Survival skills." My dad added, "About time he learned to figure things out himself." I read those messages standing alone in a rest stop parking lot as the sun started going down, and something shifted in me that has never shifted back. I called Kyle again. This time he answered, still laughing. I said, "You're joking, right? Come back." He said, "We're teaching you a lesson. You've been coasting your whole life. Time to grow up. You can catch a bus, hitchhike, whatever. We'll see you when you get home. If you get home." More laughter in the background. Then he hung up. I stood there and did the math. $43. 20% battery. Nearest town, 15 miles away. No buses. Getting dark. I called one more time. Kyle texted back, "Stop being a baby. It's funny. Figure it out like the rest of us had to." Here's what made that message so insulting. None of them had ever had to figure anything out. Kyle got a car at 16, handed to him. Rachel had her entire college paid for without working a single shift. I had worked through all 4 years of high school, saved every dollar, and was 2 weeks away from starting community college on my own dime. I was the one who had always figured things out. They knew that. That's why they thought it was funny. I walked to the highway and stuck my thumb out. 3 hours later, a truck driver named Eugene picked me up. He was heading to a town 50 miles from my house. "I'll get you as close as I can," he said. We drove mostly in silence. He didn't ask why I was hitchhiking and I didn't offer. When he dropped me off at a gas station at midnight, I had $31 left. I called my parents. My dad answered, his voice loose and amused like he'd been watching a game. "Made it pretty far, huh?" I told him I was 50 miles from home at midnight with no money for a cab. He said, "Then walk. It'll build character. Or call one of your friends. Stop calling us." Then he hung up. I sat on the curb outside that gas station and looked at my phone. 9% battery. I started calling every friend I had. Most didn't answer. It was past midnight on a weeknight. At 3 a.m., Jason picked up. I told him where I was. He didn't ask why. He just said, "I'm coming." He drove an hour each way in the middle of the night without a single complaint, and when he pulled up and I got in the car, he looked at me once and said, "You okay?" I said, "Not really." He nodded and drove. That was it. A friend I'd known for 2 years did more for me that night than my entire family. I crashed on Jason's couch. The next morning I woke up to the family group chat already running. My mom, "Where are you? You missed breakfast." Kyle, "Dude, seriously, you're still mad? It was a prank." Rachel, "Stop being so dramatic, we were just having fun." I stared at those messages for a long time. Not with anger, with clarity. They weren't apologizing. They weren't checking if I was okay. They were annoyed that I wasn't over it yet. I typed one message into the group chat. "I'm not coming home." My mom called within seconds. "Don't be ridiculous." "Yes, you are. Your stuff is here." I said, "No. I'm done. You left me stranded in the middle of nowhere as a joke. You thought it was funny to abandon your son. I'm 19. I don't need you." She said I was overreacting and told me to get home now. I hung up and blocked every number. Not in anger. In decision. What happened next is the part they never knew about, and it matters. Jason's parents let me stay in their guest room without question. I withdrew from community college, got a job at a shipping warehouse, and worked doubles 6 days a week. 6 months later, I moved to a city 4 hours away, changed my phone number, and deleted every social media account I had. I didn't send birthday cards. I didn't call on holidays. I didn't reach out when I heard things through the grapevine. I simply stopped existing in their world, the same way they had made me feel like I didn't exist in that parking lot. I worked my way up at the warehouse. Supervisor, then operations manager. Then after 5 years, regional director for the entire Western Division. I bought a house. I got a dog named Eugene, yes, after the truck driver, because some debts don't get repaid with money. I built a life so far from that rest stop that some days I forgot it had happened at all. But here's what I found out 2 years after I left, and this is where the story gets darker. My cousin Derek was the only family member who had called me after the incident, not to laugh, but to check if I was okay. We stayed in quiet contact over the years. He was my one thread of information I never asked for but sometimes needed. About 2 years after I disappeared, Derek told me that my mom had started telling a different version of the rest stop story. In her version, it had been a misunderstanding. They thought I had gotten into a different car. They drove back to look for me, but I was already gone. I had overreacted and cut off the whole family over nothing. That version had spread through every aunt, uncle, cousin, and family friend. I was the ungrateful son who had abandoned his family without reason. I was the one who had caused the rift. I sat with that information for a long time. I didn't reach out to correct it. I didn't send a message to the group chat with the real story. I just kept building my life and let them keep their lie, because I understood something important. That lie was load-bearing. Without it, they would have to look at what they actually did. Derek kept me updated over the years without me asking. Kyle got married, had 2 kids. Rachel moved across the country for work. My parents sold the family house and downsized. Normal life, moving forward, everyone fine. And then about a year ago, Derek told me my dad had been diagnosed. It was serious. I filed that information away and kept going. I didn't call. I didn't send a card. I wasn't being cruel. I was being consistent. They had made their position clear in that parking lot. I had made mine clear the morning after. Then last week, 107 missed calls. It started with Rachel. Unknown number, which told me she knew I had her blocked. Her voice was shaking in a way I hadn't heard since we were kids. "Connor, Dad is dying. He's been asking for you. Mom is a mess. We need you here. Whatever happened in the past, we can work through it now. Please just come home." I listened to the whole voicemail without moving. Then my mom, crying so hard I could barely make out the words. Then more numbers I didn't recognize, aunts and cousins recruited to apply pressure, each one with a variation of the same message. "You need to come home. He's your father. Family is family." And then Kyle. His first message was soft, almost unrecognizable without the laughter underneath it. "Hey, I know it's been a long time. Dad's not doing well. I think you should come." I listened to that one twice. Then his second message, sent 4 hours later. "Fine. Be selfish. Dad's dying and you can't even pick up the phone. You always were the weak one. That's why we left you that day. To toughen you up. Guess it didn't work." 2 messages. 4 hours apart. The first one was for my benefit. The second one was the real Kyle. 15 years and he still couldn't hold a mask for half a day. I called Derek. He picked up on the second ring. I asked him to tell me what was actually happening. He was quiet for a moment, then he said, "Your dad is sick, Connor. That part is real. But there's something else you need to know." He paused. "Your mom has been telling the misunderstanding story for so long that most of the family genuinely believes it now. If you show up, it validates her version. The prodigal son comes home, everyone cries. The family was never really broken. But if you don't show up, people start asking why. And that question has an answer she doesn't want anyone to find." I asked him what he thought I should do. He said, "I think you already know." I thanked him and hung up. I sat with my phone for a long time after that. I thought about my father, who had answered at midnight when I was stranded and told me to walk, who had laughed in the background when Kyle said I could hitchhike or figure it out. I thought about whether illness changes people, whether I owed him something simply because of biology. I thought about it honestly, the way I try to think about hard things. And then I thought about something Derek had told me 3 years ago that I hadn't fully processed until now. He said that in the months after I disappeared, my dad had told people he wasn't worried about me, that I'd come back when I was ready, that I just needed time to grow up. He had never once, in 15 years, picked up a phone and called me himself. Not on my birthday. Not at Christmas. Not when Derek told him I had been promoted to regional director. Not once. The 107 calls came when he needed something. That's not a relationship. That's a transaction. I called Rachel back. She answered on the first ring, her voice full of desperate hope. I said, "I'm not coming." She started to speak and I kept going. "I'm not coming, and I want you to understand why, not so you can argue with it, but so you actually know the truth for once." She went quiet. I said, "You left me at a rest stop 300 miles from home as a joke. All of you." Mom sent laughing emojis. Dad told me to walk when I called from a gas station at midnight. Kyle just told me in a voicemail 2 hours ago that I was always the weak one, so I know nothing has changed. I don't have a relationship with any of you because you made it clear 15 years ago that I wasn't worth basic decency. And then your mom spent 15 years telling everyone it was a misunderstanding so none of you would have to reckon with what you actually did. Rachel said, "That's not fair, Connor. We were young and stupid. People make mistakes." I said, "You're right. People make mistakes. And then they apologize. In 15 years, not one of you called me to apologize. Not one message, not one letter, nothing. The first time any of you reached out was when you needed something from me. That's not a mistake you're sorry about. That's just who you are." She started crying. I said, "I'm sorry your dad is sick. I mean that genuinely. But I'm not the solution to this. You don't get to leave someone on the side of the road and then call them when you need a ride." She didn't say anything after that. I hung up. I blocked the unknown numbers. I texted Derek, told him I wasn't coming, told him to reach out if he personally needed anything. He replied with 2 words. "I know." I put my phone face down and went back to work. That evening I took my dog for a long walk, the same route we do every night, past the park and back through the quiet street behind my house. I thought about Eugene the truck driver, who picked up a stranger at dusk because it was the decent thing to do. I thought about Jason, who drove 2 hours in the middle of the night without asking a single question. I thought about Derek, who called to check on me when nobody else did. The people who showed up for me when I had nothing were strangers and a cousin. My family showed up for the first time in 15 years when they needed an audience for their grief. 107 missed calls. I didn't answer one. Here's what I've learned in 15 years of building something from nothing. The people who abandon you don't get to define the terms of your return. They left me at a rest stop and called it a lesson. I took the lesson seriously. I learned that I didn't need them. I learned that the people worth keeping are the ones who show up at 3 a.m. without being asked. I learned that a quiet life built on your own terms is worth more than any family dinner where you have to pretend the parking lot never happened. They wanted to toughen me up. They did. Just not in the way they intended. I'm not angry anymore. I haven't been angry in years. Anger would mean I'm still waiting for something from them. I'm not waiting for anything. I already have everything I need, And none of it came from them. Some people teach you your worth by showing you how little they think of it. I took that lesson and ran with it. Turns out, I was always good at figuring things out on my own.